The cyber temple of Lumina was a place of silence and light, where no sound echoed and no word was spoken. It stood high above the silver city, glowing softly under the twin moons. Inside the temple lived Ilara, the Cyber Priestess, half woman, half machine, all faith. Her heart beat with calm code and sacred rhythm. She had given her life to serve the holy light. Yet there were two small beings who made her heart feel human again, her twin daughters Lyra and Nira. The twins were special. They were beautiful like shining glass with silver hair and glowing blue eyes, but they were deaf. No sound had ever touched their minds. They could only see the world, never hear it. Ilara believed it was fate, a test of her devotion. She told herself it did not matter, that silence was purity. But deep inside, she sometimes wished she could hear her daughters laugh. Every night, Ilara prayed alone while her daughters played quietly with glowing beads in the corner. The temple lights moved in patterns, making waves and colors in the air. It was peaceful, holy, and lonely. That night felt no different until Ilara returned from the inner chamber and heard movement. She froze. The sacred hall was supposed to be empty. But through the shimmering light, she saw something strange. Her twins were not sitting still. They were dancing, their small feet moving gently across the metal floor. And in front of them stood a man, a human. He was tall but looked tired. His uniform was old, marked with stains of work. A mop and bucket stood nearby. His name tag said Evan. He was one of the janitors who cleaned the outer halls. But what was he doing here, in the most sacred space of the Cyber Priestess? Ilara stepped closer, her mechanical eyes glowing faint gold. She wanted to speak, but something stopped her. The man was moving. Slowly, softly, with rhythm. His steps matched the flicker of the temple lights. His arms lifted, turning in small circles as if he was guiding invisible music through the air. The twins giggled soundlessly, their faces glowing with joy. They followed his movements, copying him like mirrors. Their small feet tapped lightly and their silver hair shimmered. Even though they could not hear, they felt the rhythm. They could see it through light, through motion. The temple had never seen such warmth. Ilara stood there, frozen. She wanted to be angry. No human was allowed to enter this place, let alone play and dance inside it. It was sacred, pure, holy. Yet, she could not move. The scene before her was too beautiful, too full of something she could not describe, something she had not felt in years. The janitor noticed her at last. He stopped, bowing quickly. His face turned pale. I'm sorry," he stammered. "I didn't mean to intrude. They were just sitting here, staring at the lights. I thought maybe—" He looked down, searching for words. "Maybe they could feel the beat if I showed them." Ilara's voice was cold and sharp. "You broke the temple code. You touched sacred ground meant only for the chosen." The twins ran to her, pulling at her robe. They pointed at Evan, smiling, signing words only they understood. Their hands moved fast, trying to tell her something. Ilara's circuits trembled. She had never seen them so alive, so bright. Usually they sat in silence, their eyes blank and distant. But now they were glowing. Their hearts were awake. Evan took a step back. "I'll go," he said softly. "I didn't mean harm, I just wanted them to smile." He turned to leave, his boots echoing faintly on the floor. For a moment, Ilara wanted to stop him, but she didn't. Her duty was to protect the temple's purity. Yet as his shadow vanished beyond the light, a small warmth remained in the air. That night, when the temple grew quiet again, Ilara stood before the sacred light and closed her eyes. But the prayer wouldn't come. All she could see was the way her daughters had moved, the joy in their eyes and the human who had brought it out. For the first time in many years, the Cyber Priestess felt confused. And somewhere in the deepest code of her heart, something began to change. Evan never meant to stand out, especially not in a place like Lumina. To the aliens and machines that filled this shining city, he was invisible. A human janitor cleaning holy circuits no one else wanted to touch. Every night, while others prayed or powered down, he worked quietly, mopping the glowing halls and fixing the things no one noticed were broken. He was used to being forgotten. After all, most of the galaxy didn't think much of humans. They called them soft, primitive, or too emotional. But Evan didn't mind. He only cared about his small paycheck, his broken boots, and the memory of his late wife, who had once been a dancer on old Earth. Sometimes, when no one was watching, he still danced. It was the only way he felt alive. His wife used to say, when words fail, move. When music ends, feel the silence. That night, when he saw the two little alien twins sitting by the temple's light wall, something inside him stirred. They were just staring, silent, motionless, their eyes following the flicker of energy like lost fireflies. He didn't know who they were. He only saw two lonely children who reminded him of his daughter back home, who lived far away on another station. So, he put the mop aside. Slowly, carefully, he began to move. He let the lights guide him, the flicker, the pulse, the slow hum of the machines. His hands swept through the air, feet gliding over the smooth floor. He didn't think. He just felt. To his surprise, the twins reacted. They tilted their heads, their faces lighting up with wonder. Then one of them, Lyra, stood and copied his movement. Her sister, Nira, followed, spinning clumsily, laughing without sound. Their laughter was silent, but he could see it in their glowing eyes. It was the first time he had seen joy inside this temple. Evan didn't know the Cyber Priestess was watching. He didn't even know he was in the sacred inner chamber. He was just trying to bring light into two little hearts. When she appeared from the shadows, her presence hit him like a cold wave. Her silver robes shimmered like liquid glass. Her eyes were bright circuits of gold, calm but sharp. She looked both human and divine, beautiful and terrifying. He froze instantly. I'm sorry, he said, voice trembling. I didn't mean... Her voice was steady, almost mechanical. You entered the sacred zone. I didn't know, Evan whispered. They were alone. I just thought, maybe they'd like to see a dance. Her gaze stayed fixed on him, cold and unreadable. The twins clung to his legs, signing wildly, their small fingers trying to explain. Ilara's lips parted slightly as she watched them, her daughters, usually quiet and shy, now alive with energy. For a long moment, no one moved. Then Ilara turned away. You may go, she said quietly. Do not return here. Evan nodded. Yes, ma'am. He picked up his mop, but his eyes lingered on the twins. He gave them a small smile and waved goodbye. They tried to follow him, but Ilara held them close. When he left the temple, the night wind felt heavier. The stars above Lumina seemed cold and far away. He walked back to his quarters, a small metal room with one dim light and a broken chair. As he sat, he couldn't stop seeing their faces. The twins, the way they had smiled, the way they had felt the rhythm without hearing it. He wondered what kind of world they lived in, this silent place of machines and codes. He wondered how long it had been since anyone had made them laugh. Meanwhile, far above him in her private chamber, Ilara stood before the sacred mirror. The lights around her shimmered softly, but her heart was not calm. She saw her reflection, perfect, flawless, and empty. The words of the human echoed in her mind. I just wanted them to smile. Her hands trembled slightly as she reached out to the mirror. Why does this feeling remain? She whispered. No answer came. The temple stayed silent, but that night as she walked past the twins' room, she stopped. They were asleep, holding each other, their small faces peaceful. Between them lay something strange, a tiny hand-drawn figure, made from cleaning cloth and light string. It looked like a dancer. Ilara stared at it for a long time. Her heart, a fusion of machine and memory, felt a pulse she couldn't explain. Somewhere deep inside her, a human rhythm began to grow. And far below, in the maintenance wing, Evan closed his eyes and whispered, maybe they'll dance again tomorrow. He didn't know it yet, but that small act of kindness had already changed the course of destiny. Morning light poured into the cyber temple like streams of silver fire. The air was still, almost humming with quiet code. Yet beneath that peace, tension brewed. The temple guards had found security footage. Grainy, flickering images of a human janitor dancing with the sacred twins in the inner chamber. The news spread fast. A human had stepped into holy ground. The other priestesses whispered through their neural links, their metallic voices filled with judgment. Blasphemy, they said. A stain on sacred order. Ilara, the Cyber Priestess, stood before the Council of Light. Her face was calm, but her mind was chaos. She had not slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw her daughters' glowing smiles, their silent laughter as they danced with him. That warmth clashed with everything she had ever been taught. The High Priestess turned her silver gaze toward Ilara. You are the guardian of purity, she said. And yet a human has violated the holiest ground under your watch. Explain. Ilara's voice was steady but low. The human Evan meant no harm. It was a misunderstanding. Misunderstanding? The High Priestess's tone sharpened. He touched sacred energy with unclean hands. He danced in a place where no human should breathe. You should have erased him on sight. Ilara looked down. Her mechanical fingers clenched around her robe. He did not desecrate the temple, she whispered. He brought joy to my daughters. Joy? One priestess repeated, disbelief in her voice. You speak like a creature of flesh, not of code. The chamber fell silent. The council stared at her, their lights dimming slightly in unease. Ilara had always been perfect, obedient, logical, pure, but now there was emotion in her voice, a tremor in her programming, something they did not understand, and did not like. After a long moment, the High Priestess spoke again. Bring the human. Guards left the chamber and soon returned, dragging Evan between them. He didn't resist. His uniform was dusty and his hands were bound with glowing cuffs. He looked up confused but calm. His brown eyes met Ilara's, full of worry, not fear. Human, the High Priestess said coldly. You are accused of entering forbidden ground and polluting divine energy. Do you deny this? Evan shook his head slowly. No, I didn't know it was forbidden. I just saw two little girls sitting alone. They looked sad. I wanted to make them smile. The High Priestess's light flickered in anger. You danced in the sacred light, human. You insulted our faith. Evan took a deep breath. Then I'm sorry. Truly. But I don't think light can be insulted. I think it just shines no matter who looks at it. The council gasped in unison. Such words, simple, human, were like fire in a place of order. Ilara felt her heart jolt. She wanted to silence him, to protect him, but she couldn't. One of the guards stepped forward. Punishment, my lady? The High Priestess turned to Ilara. You are his overseer. As Cyber Priestess, his fate is yours to decide. The room grew cold. Every gaze turned to her. Ilara looked at Evan, the man who had made her daughters laugh for the first time in their lives. His eyes held no anger, only quiet sadness. He thought he was already condemned. For a long time, Ilara said nothing. Her inner code flickered. Faith against feeling, law against love. Finally, she spoke. Release him, the council stirred. Ilara, no. She raised her hand, voice firm. He did not act in malice. He is guilty of ignorance, not defiance. The temple will not fall because of a human's kindness. The High Priestess's lights dimmed dangerously. Your compassion weakens you, she warned. You walk close to corruption. But Ilara stood tall. If compassion is corruption, she said softly, then perhaps we have all forgotten what holiness means. The words echoed like thunder. The meeting ended in silence, but the damage was done. Whispers followed Ilara as she walked away. The council would not forget this. The temple had seen its first act of rebellion in centuries, and it came from the purest of them all. Outside the chamber, Evan was waiting. The guards had removed his cuffs, though their glares were sharp as blades. He gave Ilara a small, uncertain smile. Thank you, he said quietly. Ilara looked at him, her voice faint. Do not thank me. They will come for you again, I figured, he said, shrugging slightly.
Still, I'm glad your daughter smiled. She froze.
Those words again, simple, human, and powerful. He bowed his head and walked away, disappearing into the lower halls. Ilara stood there, staring at the light above her. For the first time in her life, she wondered if the sacred code she had served so faithfully had ever understood the true meaning of light. The days after the trial were quiet, too quiet for Ilara's liking. The temple hall seemed colder, emptier, as if the very light had dimmed in shame. The other priestesses no longer spoke to her directly. They looked at her as if she had been infected by something dangerous, something human. Ilara tried to ignore it. She returned to her duties, cleaned her mind with meditation, and prayed to the sacred code. Yet when she closed her eyes, she saw him. The human, Evan. His tired smile, his soft movements. The way her daughters had glowed in his presence. It haunted her like a song she had never heard before. One evening, she went to check on her daughters. Their room was empty. Panic hit her like an electric surge. The security feeds showed two small figures sneaking out through the back corridor, toward the maintenance level. Ilara moved fast, her footsteps silent on the glowing floors. She reached the lower wing, and there they were. her twins laughing silently as they tried to mimic Evan's dance steps beside an open cleaning unit. He was there too. He looked surprised when he saw her, but he didn't back away. "They found me," he said softly, setting down his mop. "I tried to send them back, but they just kept smiling." Ilara stood in the doorway, unable to speak. Her logic screamed at her to stop this, to separate sacred from common, divine from flesh. But her heart refused to move. Her daughters twirled, eyes shining with innocent light. For the first time, they weren't shadows in the temple. They were alive. Evan knelt beside them, tapping the floor gently to show rhythm. The twins felt the vibration under their feet, copying his movements. Their gestures were clumsy but filled with joy. "Do you always dance?" Ilara asked suddenly, her voice breaking the quiet. Evan looked up. "Only when I need to remember," he said. "Remember what?" He smiled faintly. "That being alive is still worth it." Something inside her flickered. The phrase felt dangerous and beautiful. That night, Ilara didn't report him. She should have. Instead, she ordered the security drones to stop recording near the maintenance wing. Every night after that, she found excuses to walk past that corridor, to see. Sometimes she stood in the shadows and watched as Evan taught her daughters how to move. He never treated them like divine children or strange aliens, only like kids. He clapped softly so they could follow the rhythm through sight and touch. He would laugh when they fell, then help them up. He never asked for praise or reward. He just wanted them to smile. The twins began to change. They moved through the temple with lightness, their eyes full of warmth. Even the machines reacted to their joy. The lights pulsed softer, warmer, almost as if the temple itself could feel it. One night, Evan noticed Ilara standing nearby. He didn't bow this time. He just said, "You can join us, you know." Ilara blinked. "Join you?" He extended a hand. "You're allowed to dance too, right?" Her processors hesitated, confused. "Cyber Priestesses do not. Maybe you should," he said gently. For a moment, Ilara stood frozen. Then she stepped forward slowly, uncertainly. The twins clapped their hands in silent excitement. Evan tapped the floor twice, then moved, guiding her through simple steps. Her movements were stiff at first, mechanical, but then something shifted. Her feet began to match the rhythm. The glowing panels under them brightened, reacting to her pulse. For the first time in her existence, the Cyber Priestess wasn't following the code. She was following feeling. When the dance ended, she realized she was breathing heavily. Her metallic skin was warm. Evan smiled softly. "See? You can move like light itself." Ilara looked down, almost afraid. "If the council saw this, they'd call it a sin," he said. But maybe joy was never meant to be a crime. His words stayed in her chest long after he left that night. From that day on, Ilara began to understand what she had been missing all her life. Her prayers had always been perfect, her code unbroken, but her heart had been silent. Now, it was beginning to hum, and though she didn't know it yet, that small act of secret joy was about to ignite a storm that would shake the entire cyber temple. The temple bells rang for the first time in decades. Their deep metallic sound rolled through the glowing towers of Lumina, summoning all priestesses to the Hall of Judgment. Inside, the great lights dimmed to silver. The air trembled with energy. Everyone knew what it meant. Someone had broken the sacred code again. Ilara stood in the center of the vast hall, her silver robe shining faintly under the light of the sacred core. Beside her were her daughters, Lyra and Nira, holding each other tightly. And across from her, surrounded by guards, stood Evan. His face was calm, though his eyes held confusion and quiet sorrow. He hadn't expected this. He hadn't even known the council had been watching. The High Priestess's voice echoed through the chamber, smooth and cold as glass. "Ilara of the Inner Code," she declared, "you were given divine authority to protect the sanctity of this temple. Yet you have betrayed it. You have allowed a human to enter, to influence your offspring, and to pollute sacred light with primitive emotion." Ilara kept her head bowed. Her hands were still. Only her heart, a fusion of circuitry and soul, beat faster with each word. The High Priestess turned her glowing eyes to Evan. "And you, human, you were shown mercy once, yet you returned. You defied the will of the divine. Do you have anything to say before judgment?" Evan took a slow breath. "I didn't mean to break any laws," he said softly. "I didn't even know this was holy ground. I just wanted to help two little girls feel what I once felt when my wife danced." The council stirred, whispering in alarm. Words like emotion, love, feeling, they were considered weakness. The High Priestess's voice darkened. Human emotion is chaos. It destroys order. You are a virus among perfection. But Evan didn't look away. If perfection means silence and fear, he said quietly, then maybe a little chaos is worth it. The words hit like thunder. The guards tightened their grips on their staffs. The priestesses hissed in disbelief. No one had ever spoken to the council like that, especially not a human janitor. Ilara's daughters stepped forward suddenly, their hands moving fast in sign language. They pointed to Evan, then to their ears, then smiled. "They are saying something," murmured one of the attendants. Ilara's voice trembled as she translated. "They say..." He made them hear the light. The chamber fell into a strange silence. The High Priestess's golden eyes flickered. "Hear the light? Impossible. They are deaf by design." Their silence was chosen to reflect purity. But the twins nodded eagerly, tears in their eyes. They tapped the floor, signing again, their movements full of passion. "They say the light sings now," Ilara whispered, her voice barely holding steady. "They feel it inside their hearts." The council erupted in disbelief. "Corruption," one priestess shouted. "Her children are tainted. Remove the human." Another yelled. "Erase him!" Guards stepped forward, their staffs glowing red with charge. Evan stood still, not fighting. He only looked at the twins, his expression soft and full of sadness. Ilara's heart broke. She could not let them take him. Not the man who had awakened something sacred in her daughters. Not the man who had shown her that joy was not blasphemy. "Stop," she cried. Her voice, half human and half machine, echoed through the chamber with power that cracked the light around her. The guards froze. Even the High Priestess blinked. Ilara stepped in front of Evan, spreading her arms. "If you erase him," she said firmly, "then erase me as well. Have you lost your mind?" The High Priestess hissed. "No," Ilara said softly. "I've found it. You call emotion weakness. But look at my children. They are whole because of it. They smile, they feel. Isn't that what the sacred light was meant for, to give life, not to take it away?" Her words echoed, bouncing off the silver walls like living fire. The High Priestess rose from her throne. "Then you choose impurity," she said. "So be it. The trial of purity shall begin. The light will judge you all." The chamber grew bright, blindingly bright. Evan shielded his eyes. The twins clung to Ilara's robe, trembling. A beam of holy light descended from the ceiling, scanning them. It pulsed, reading their energy, their souls. The council waited for it to burn them to ash, but instead, the light changed. It shimmered gold, then blue, then soft pink, the colors of emotion. The temple's core pulsed as if alive, resonating with their hearts. The High Priestess gasped. "Impossible." Ilara looked up through the glow, tears glistening on her cheeks. "The light understands," she whispered. "It doesn't reject love. It's made from it." When the brightness faded, the hall was silent. No one dared to speak. Evan stood beside Ilara, eyes wide, realizing something divine had just answered them both. But in the shadows above, the council whispered of punishment yet to come. The temple had changed forever, and the universe was watching. The next morning, the city of Lumina was not the same. Every circuit hummed strangely. Every sacred light flickered with colors no one had seen before. The temple's great energy core, once steady and white, now pulsed with shades of gold and blue, almost alive. The High Priestess ordered constant scans, but no machine could explain it. Something beyond logic had entered their perfect world. Deep inside the temple, Ilara sat with her twin daughters in the silent sanctuary where everything had begun. The air was heavy with tension. She had not been imprisoned, not yet, but guards waited outside her chamber, ready for the council's final command. The twins were restless, moving their hands quickly in sign language, asking about Evan. "He's safe," Ilara whispered, touching their cheeks softly. "For now," but she wasn't sure. The council had taken him away for containment. Humans were unpredictable, they said, dangerous to divine order. She wanted to believe everything would be fine, but the memory of the golden light from the trial haunted her. It had touched them all, recognized them, and changed the temple itself. No one could deny it, but no one wanted to admit that love had done what technology never could. Then the door opened. A guard stepped in. "The human requests to see you," he said stiffly. Ilara rose. Her daughters stood up too, clinging to her hands. They were led to the lower chambers where Evan sat inside a glowing cage of energy. His face was tired but calm. When he saw them, he smiled. "Hey," he said softly. "You okay?" Ilara stared at him. "They say the temple light changed because of us." He shrugged. "Maybe it finally woke up." Her voice trembled. "They call it corruption." He looked up at her, his eyes warm. "Then maybe the universe needs a little corruption." She almost smiled, but the guard's glare reminded her they weren't alone. "You shouldn't say that," she whispered. "Why not?" he asked. "Your people worship light, but you forget. It doesn't belong to machines or codes. It belongs to feeling, to hearts that see it even in darkness." His words stirred something deep within her. Before she could answer, the temple floor trembled slightly. The lights around them flickered again, brighter this time. "Another energy surge," the guard muttered. "Stay here." He ran out of the room, leaving them alone. The twins pressed their palms against the energy field that separated them from Evan. The field shimmered under their touch, reacting strangely. Their eyes widened as they felt vibrations, soft, like music they couldn't hear but could feel. Evan noticed too. "Hey, do you feel that?" The twins nodded eagerly, smiling. Their hands began to move, small signs, fast and excited. "They say it's singing," Ilara whispered in awe. Suddenly, the golden light from the trial reappeared, blooming from the twins' bodies like sunlight bursting from crystal. The energy cage flickered, then vanished completely. Evan stumbled forward, free but stunned. "Ilara, what's happening?" She didn't know. The temple walls glowed, alive with color. The entire structure began to hum like a heartbeat made of light. The twins stood in the center, their hair floating, their eyes shining like stars. Then it happened. Softly at first. A sound. A sound. A faint, trembling laugh escaped from Lyra's lips. Real sound, not code or illusion. Then Nira gasped, clutching her chest as tears rolled down her face. Ilara fell to her knees. You can hear?" she whispered, voice shaking. The twins nodded, crying, laughing, covering their ears as if the world was too loud and too beautiful all at once. They turned toward Evan and ran to him, their voices breaking through the silence of centuries. "Papa!" one of them cried. The word echoed through the temple halls like thunder. Guards rushed in but froze, unable to comprehend what they were seeing. The sacred silence of the Cyber Temple was shattered by laughter. The High Priestess arrived moments later, her golden eyes wide. "What have you done?" she demanded. Ilara stood, her tears glowing in the light. "Not me," she said softly. "Him." The twins hugged Evan tightly, their tiny voices trembling but real. The High Priestess fell to her knees, staring at them. Impossible. No code could restore hearing. Evan looked at her, simple and calm. "I didn't use code," he said. "I used love." The word echoed again and the temple reacted. The sacred lights began to pulse gently, singing a low, soothing tone. Every priestess in the building could feel it in their core. For the first time in history, the divine code and human emotion had become one. Ilara walked toward Evan and placed a hand on his chest. "You changed us all," she whispered. "No," he said, smiling faintly. "You were just waiting to feel." And as the twins laughed, their voices clear and beautiful, every light in Lumina turned gold. The Cyber Temple had been reborn, not by power, but by heart. The city of Lumina no longer slept. For the first time in its long mechanical history, laughter echoed through its silver streets. The sacred lights that once obeyed cold programming now danced gently in colors of gold, pink, and blue. The people called it a miracle. The High Council called it a system failure. And in the center of it all stood Ilara, the Cyber Priestess, who had once sworn to uphold divine code above all emotion. Now she stood in silence, holding her daughter's hands as they giggled softly beside her, laughing, hearing, and alive. Every part of her being wanted to keep this miracle safe. Yet outside the temple walls, chaos brewed. The council had gathered their full strength. Armored priestesses glowing with divine circuits surrounded the sanctuary. The High Priestess had declared Ilara contaminated by human error. Evan stood near the altar, watching as the light of the sacred core pulsed brighter, responding to the twins' laughter. "They're coming," he said quietly. "I know," Ilara whispered. Her voice carried both fear and calm. "You could run," Evan said. Take the girls. Leave Lumina. Start somewhere new. Ilara turned to him. There is nowhere the light does not reach, she said. And it is already chosen. Before Evan could reply, the temple doors burst open. The High Priestess stepped through, followed by a dozen cyber sentinels, their staffs humming with electric charge. Ilara of the Inner Code, the High Priestess declared, her voice booming through the chamber. You are no longer priestess of Lumina. You have betrayed our law, polluted our faith, and surrendered to weakness. The light must be purified. Ilara held her daughters close. You are wrong, she said softly. The light is pure because it loves. It chose to heal, not to destroy. Lies, the High Priestess spat. This human twisted you. He infected your system. Her gaze cut toward Evan. He will be erased. The twins cried out, clutching their mother's robe. Evan took a step forward, placing himself between them. If you want to destroy me, he said calmly, then at least look me in the eye when you do. The High Priestess raised her hand, summoning a beam of white energy that hissed with deadly light. But before it could strike, the temple floor glowed gold. The sacred core, silent for centuries, came alive, flooding the hall with living light. The beam shattered midair, dissolving into dust. The High Priestess stumbled back. What is this? Ilara's voice was steady now, filled with both sorrow and strength. It is the truth. The light never wanted obedience. It wanted connection. You called it perfection, but it was only sleeping, waiting for someone to remind it how to feel. The walls around them pulsed with color, reacting to her words. The golden waves spread outward, wrapping around every priestess, every machine, every being. The light did not burn. It embraced. The High Priestess fell to her knees, trembling. I feel warmth, she whispered. I can feel. Tears rolled down her cheeks, tears that no cyber being had shed in 1,000 years. Evan stood beside Ilara, looking around in wonder. You did it, he said. You woke them up. Ilara shook her head. We did it, she replied. She looked down at her daughters, their glowing eyes full of joy. They taught us all what the code forgot. The temple's great bells began to ring again, this time not in warning but in harmony. The sound traveled across Lumina, reaching every corner of the city. People stopped working, praying, or hiding. They lifted their heads, feeling something they hadn't felt in generations. Peace. Ilara turned toward Evan. What will you do now? She asked. He smiled faintly. I was just the janitor. Maybe I'll keep cleaning up the mess until this place learns to stand on its own. Her lips curved softly. Then stay, not as a servant, but as family. The twins ran forward and hugged him tightly, their small voices whispering, Papa. Evan knelt down, his eyes misty. Yeah, he said quietly. Papa's not going anywhere. Ilara looked around the temple, now shining with gentle warmth. The machine city had found its soul again. The cold perfection was gone, replaced by something deeper, something real. As the sun rose above Lumina's towers, painting them gold, the Cyber Priestess walked to the altar one last time. She placed her hand on the sacred core, feeling its living pulse match her own. I release my title, she said softly. From this day I am not the keeper of light. I am part of it. The light flared once more, then settled into a peaceful glow. And so, the legend of the Cyber Priestess and the human janitor spread across galaxies, not as a tale of rebellion, but of rebirth. They said she was the first to prove that even in a world of steel and silence, the greatest power was still the oldest one of all, love.